по плечу, да, я солдат. Кому же думать, как не молодым, о розовых восходах и закатах, о том, чтобы не скрыл их черный дым.
You, as professional soldiers, should know your enemy. By knowing the capabilities of his weapons and his likely tactics, you should be able to avoid his strengths and exploit his weakness. We, as infantrymen, are likely to be the first people to come across Warsaw Pact small arms. An appreciation of the weaknesses of some of these small arms will give you confidence in your own weapons. Additionally, in situations where resupply is difficult, an understanding of these weapons may well give you the ability to utilize captured Warsaw Pact weapons and ammunition. A spin-off from this knowledge is useful in such places as Northern Ireland, whereby rapid identification of communist weapons will assist intelligence. Therefore, the aim of this film is to look in detail at the Warsaw Pact small arms that you are likely to meet. During the film, we will be looking at the strengths and weaknesses of those particular weapons. For the purposes of the film, we will be looking at a typical Soviet section mounted in a BMP APC. Although the vehicle has considerable firepower, I am concentrating on the small arms carried by the section. Remember that these small arms are present throughout Warsaw Pact armies. The motor rifle section consists of a commander and 10 men. Here's the commander. He is armed with an AKM or an AKMS, and occasionally he is armed with a Makarov pistol. The gunner and the driver equally are armed with the AKM, the Kalashnikov assault weapon, the folding butt version, the AKMS, or a Makarov pistol. The light machine gunner is armed with the RPK. The anti-tank gunner is armed with an RPG-7, and both himself and the number 2 are additionally armed with either an AKM or the folding butt version, the AKMS. The remainder of the section are armed with the AKM or the folding butt version, the AKMS. Now for the small arms that a motor rifle section currently carries. The AKM is the standard shoulder weapon of most armies in the Warsaw Pact. It is a modernized version of the AK-47, which is manufactured in 13 different countries with only slight variations from the original Kalashnikov design. The designation AKM indicates that it is an automatic weapon designed by Mikhail T. Kalashnikov, which has been modernized. A folding butt version of the AKM is used by airborne forces. Approximately 35 million AK shoulder weapons have been produced, many of which are utilized by terrorists in such places as Northern Ireland. The AKM fires a 7.62mm intermediate round. It weighs 3.6 kilograms, has an effective battle range of 300 meters, and takes a magazine of 30 rounds. The 7.62 intermediate round, contrary to popular belief, is not interchangeable with the 7.62 NATO round. Note the round on the left is the 7.62 NATO round, and the one on the right is the 7.62 intermediate round. The AKM has a barrel jump reducer, which was introduced to slow down the weapon's rate of climb when fired on automatic, without, however, any appreciable success. It also has lugs for fitting a wire-cutting bayonet, which is detachable. It is gas-operated. As the weapon is designed to be fired in worst-case situations, and no alterations in gas setting can be made, tolerance in manufacture is greater than NATO weapons. This means that the weapon is less accurate than NATO weapons. Note also the distinctive cutaway shape of the gas barrel. The magazines are made of plastic or aluminium, although the heavier magazines with the AK-47 and the RPK light machine gun can be used. Remember that the magazine holds 30 rounds. Note the distinctive curved shape of the magazine. The length and shape of the magazine can hamper movement in close country. The AKM is a selective fire weapon, capable of being fired on automatic or single rounds. This is the change lever, which is set at safe. Here it is set on automatic, and here on single rounds. The AKM is sighted to 1,000 meters. However, the weapon is only accurate to 300 meters. Note the sight picture with the sight set at the battle setting 300 meters. The sights are adjusted by pressing in 2 spring-loaded studs at the side. Note also the high triangular foresight. Laminated wood and plastic is used for the butt and stock, basically to reduce weight. The weapon is cheap to produce because the working parts are made from stamped metal, and of course the weapon is reliable. It is simple to understand and is especially easy to teach to recruits. The weapon is also effective up to 300 meters. However, the AKM is less accurate than NATO weapons when firing single shot or indeed when firing automatic. This is because of the nature of the round, the length of the barrel, and the methods of manufacture. Remember, however, that this weapon fires a 7.62 intermediate round. The rounds are not interchangeable with a 7.62 NATO round. It takes a magazine of 30 rounds, and that the effective battle setting is 300 meters. However, the Russians have currently introduced a new weapon into service. This is called the AKS-74. Although little information is readily available at this stage, we do know it has a 5.45 millimeter caliber and has a sleeker look to the traditional Kalashnikov design. And now the Makarov pistol, designated PM. Occasionally, a commander, driver, or gunner will be issued with a 9mm Makarov pistol instead of an AKM or its folding butt version, the AK-MS. The Makarov pistol is the most widely issued of all Soviet pistols and is manufactured in both East Germany and Communist China. It fires a 9mm round, and the weapon weighs 0.81 kilograms. It takes a magazine of 8 rounds and has an effective range of 50 meters. The Soviet 9mm round is shorter than the one used by the SMG or 9mm Browning. Here the Soviet round is on the right and is compared with the SMG or 9mm Browning round, which is on the left. The Makarov is a blowback weapon which is closely modelled after the double-action German Walther. The magazine release catch is in the base of the weapon and operates by pushing a release catch rearwards. The spring on the release catch is usually strong. Note the safety catch set at safe. And now at fire. From a recognition point of view, the Makarov has a lanyard loop. The East German copy has no loop. The Makarov has a Soviet star on the pistol grip. The East German copy has plain grips in place of the star. The capabilities of the Makarov are comparable to those of the 9mm Browning. Although initially it was said that the effective range of the PM or Makarov is 50 meters, this is ambitious when considering the nature of the weapon. Now the Dragunov sniper rifle, designated SVD. This semi-automatic weapon is the standard sniper rifle for most Warsaw Pact armies. Only one rifle is held in a motor rifle platoon. It is a semi-automatic weapon which has many of the Kalashnikov features. It fires a 7.62mm long Soviet round. The weapon weighs 4.76 kilograms with an effective range of 800 meters. In addition, it has a magazine of 30 rounds. The SVD fires a 7.62mm long round. Here is the NATO 7.62mm round shown on the left. In the middle is the Soviet 7.62 long rimmed round. Note the rim on this Soviet round. And remember that the round is not interchangeable with the NATO 7.62mm round. Incidentally, this Soviet long round was initially developed in the 1890s, albeit updated in the 1950s. On the right is a Soviet 7.62mm long tracer round. Note the green markings on the nose of the tracer round. Here is a typical box with Soviet small arms ammunition in it. Note that a tin opener is essential if you wish to open the box. A bayonet can be fitted to the SVD, which is rather unusual for a sniper rifle. Above the bayonet lugs is a slotted flash hider, which is a distinctive feature of this weapon. It is gas operated. Note once again the Kalashnikov cutaway shape of the gas barrel. Remember that the magazine is a detachable box which holds 30 rounds. An optical sight can be fitted with a ×4 magnification, although iron sights can, of course, be used. Note also the distinctive cutaway in the laminated butt and the cheek pad. Essentially, the SVD is a reliable sniper rifle, which is effective up to 800 meters. However, remember that there is only one of these rifles held in the motor rifle platoon. The current Soviet light machine gun is the RPK, which is essentially an AKM assault rifle with a longer heavy-duty barrel, a bipod and a different butt. A folding butt version is used by the airborne forces. The RPK fires the 7.62 millimeter intermediate round. Remember that this was the round fired by the AKM. It weighs 5.9 kilograms and has an effective battle range of 800 meters. It also takes a magazine of 40 rounds, or a drum of 75 rounds. The bipod and the club butt differentiate this weapon from the AKM. Like the AKM, it is gas-operated and has a distinctive cutaway shape of gas barrel. Under the gas barrel is a cleaning rod, which is normally present on the AKM. As this weapon is designed to be fired in worst-case situations, and as no alterations in gas setting can be made, tolerance in manufacture is greater than NATO weapons. Accuracy is affected, very much like the AKM. Additionally, the gunner has problems with cooling the barrel when firing. Realistically, this means that 80 rounds a minute is the maximum which can be expected when firing, and this is barely adequate for the type of gun. This is a selective fire weapon capable of being fired on automatic or single rounds. The positions for the safety catch is identical to that of the AKM. At safe, automatic, and single rounds. Like the AKM, the RPK is sighted to 1,000 meters, although the weapon is supposed to be effective to 800 meters. It has, however, in addition to the AKM, a wind gauge which is at the rear of the backsight. The RPK will take a 30-round AKM magazine. However, it is normally issued with a 40-round curved box magazine. This is shown. Also, a 75-round drum can be used. A degree of interchangeability of working parts with the AKM is possible, although the barrel is not detachable. Nevertheless, the RPK is barely adequate as a section machine gun. Having looked at the RPK, let us now look at some of the heavy machine guns. This particular beast is called the SGM. Designated SGM because it was developed by a man called Sergei Goryanov, and the M standing for modernized. It is a heavy machine gun that is sometimes issued to sections who are not armed with BMP APCs. The APCs, like the BTR 60 PB, that do not have the firepower of the BMPs. Developed initially from the Maxim, this is a sturdy, reliable gun producing a high rate of fire out to 1,000 meters. Nevertheless, it is a heavy weapon and is being superseded in the Russian armies, although it is still present with Warsaw Pact armies. to look at the weapon itself. This weapon fires the 7.62 millimeter long-rimmed Soviet round. Now remember, that was the round that was fired by the SVD. And remember also that this round is not interchangeable with the 7.62 NATO round. Here you see the weapon mounted on an M1943 mount, which has an optical shield. Now to look at the business end of the weapon, you will note that we have on this one a conical flash hider. Not always present, this conical flash hider is removable, simply removable by taking out a split pin. You will notice that we have a splined barrel. The splined barrel is important in that it designates that this particular weapon is an SGM. Older types have a plain barrel. Now, unlike the RPK, remember the light machine gun, whereby you could not alter the gas settings, you can on this weapon, and you can do so by a micrometer barrel lock that you see here. Equally, remember, you have with this weapon a detachable barrel which makes it suitable for firing in a sustained fire roll. And here you will note the carrying handle to remove this chromed barrel, ideal for SF shoots. To come to the round end of the barrel, here you have a continuous strip link case. This takes, remember, the 7.62 rimmed long round. Remember the round that was fired by the SVD sniper rifle. The case that feeds from the right of the gun contains 250 rounds. Now, although with this particular weapon, remember it is a heavy machine gun, you can fire 600 to 700 rounds a minute, which is considerable. In reality, your practical rate of fire is 250 to 300 rounds a minute, which is quite good. Now, to progress from the strip link case itself, we come to the feed mechanism itself. The top tray is opened by pulling forward on a set of lugs and lifting up. You will notice that on the belt itself we have a stripper clip, an extension to it so that you can quickly pull it across onto the feed tray. Remember, the system is as per the Maxim. Now, because you have got a rimmed round, it is necessary to have what we call a long extraction. In other words, the round is pulled to the rear and then fed forward. So the working parts move quite a distance, and one would think that you get a considerable amount of wear on this weapon and that accuracy could be affected. But not so. This is a good, accurate, dependable weapon. And now for the sights. The rear sights can be lowered or raised simply by pressing down or lifting up. To set a sight setting, simply press in a stud on the right and lift up. For fine alterations to elevation, you go to a thumb screw on the top of the sight bracket and turn either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Like the RPK, if you wish to make lateral adjustments, you do so by a little drum to the right of the sight bracket and simply turn it either one way or the other. So much for the sighting system. The trigger mechanism and safety catch are quite naturally located to the rear of the weapon. Note in particular the two hand grips, which are held like so. The safety catch and the trigger mechanism are both linked closely together. In order to fire this weapon, you are required to push up on the safety catch and then press forward on the trigger plate, like so. As long as you keep that trigger plate forward, the weapon will continue to fire. When you release it, the safety catch automatically slots into position. That deals with the component parts of the weapon firing in the ground roll. However, it is possible to fire with this mount in an anti-aircraft roll. And this is done by removing two mounting pins. The first pin at the front of the weapon and the second pin at the rear of the weapon. The weapon is then extracted from the mount and the mount is inverted. Here is the weapon in its anti-aircraft roll. Now, points to remember. Firstly, this weapon fires a 7.62 millimeter rimmed round, the same round that is fired by the SVD sniper rifle. Secondly, it provides effective fire out to 1,000 meters. And thirdly, it has a practical rate of fire of 250 to 300 rounds per minute. However, although this weapon is reliable, it is extremely heavy and cumbersome. Essentially, the weapon is to be replaced by the next one that we shall see, which is the PKM, General Purpose Machine Gun. Here it is, the recently issued PKM. Until the 1960s, the Soviets did not have a machine gun which combined the roles of light and sustained fire. Using Kalashnikov design principles, the PKM has replaced some section light machine guns, the RPKs, and most heavy machine guns, the SGMs. The PKM can be fired from a bipod, mounted on a tripod, or from AFVs. It fires the 7.62 long-rimmed cartridge, the same cartridge as fired by the SVD sniper rifle and the SGM heavy machine gun. The weapon weighs 9 kilograms and has a maximum effective range of 1,000 meters. It takes belts of 100, 200, or 250, and these can be used fed direct from an ammunition box. It has a practical rate of fire of 250 rounds per minute. Although this particular weapon has a conical flash hider, more modern versions have a slotted straight flash hider. The barrel is detachable and fitted with a carrying handle, ideal for SF shoots. It has a prominent gas cylinder below the barrel. From a recognition point of view, it has a distinctive cutaway frame-like butt, which resembles that of the SVD, the sniper rifle. Essentially, the PKM is a reliable, accurate, and effective GPMG. And now for something completely different, an anti-tank weapon. The RPG-7V is the standard Warsaw-packed anti-tank grenade launcher, which of course is also favoured by terrorist organisations. An airborne forces version also exists, and this is designated the RPG RPG-7D, and it is available so that it can be divided into two. The number 2 on the RPG-7V generally carries 2 rockets with a further 2 in the AFV. The weapon weighs 6.3 kilograms and has a high explosive anti-tank warhead, which we are led to believe will penetrate 320 millimeters of armor. It also has an effective range against stationary targets of 500 meters and against moving targets of 300 meters. The RPG-7 has a distinctive conical venturi, which acts as a blast shield. It also has a tapering cylindrical wooden shoulder shield, which constitutes half the length of the weapon. Both protect the firer from blast and burns. 2 pistol grips are set at either side of the body. The weapon is cocked by hand and has a push-button safety catch, which when fully pushed in is on safe. And when pushed from the right is on fire. It has metal sights with a large foresight. Both foresight and rear sight are lowered and raised as required. To set a range on the rear sight, a button to the left of the sight is pushed in, enabling the sight to move freely. The sight is graduated up to 500 meters. Of course, we can also fit an optical sight, as you see here. This can be illuminated for night work. By pressing the switch down, the sight is on. The sight, however, is complicated, and by looking at the sight picture, it looks rather like a Chinese acupuncture set, which may account for some difficulties in aiming. This is the live RPG-7 heat warhead. Note the color. Note on the tail of it you have a plastic cap which, when initially assembled, is removed. As this is a 2-stage rocket, we require a booster propellant, which originally is placed in a white container. The propellant is then taken out and is screwed into the tail of the rocket. The rocket complete is then placed into the RPG-7 launcher. Here is the assembled RPG-7 rocket ready to be fed into the RPG-7 launcher. Note in particular the booster to the rocket. Contained within the booster are fins. The booster ejects the weapon from the launcher and fins come into action. The fins help to stabilize the rocket during its flight. Once the fins are in operation, a second motor contained within the warhead takes over and gives it the impetus to the target. Note in particular that when fitting the warhead into the launcher, the stud or screw at the top of the weapon must be located in the recess in the RPG-7 launcher. This is to ensure that the firing pin is in the correct place. All that remains is to remove the white tag and cap, which exposes the nose fuse. The warhead will self-destruct at 900 meters if it fails to hit the target. This facility has been used by terrorists against helicopters and aircraft. Although the effective engagement distances of the RPG-7V are identical to those of the medium anti-tank weapons, that is 500 meters stationary and 300 meters moving, the penetration is less. Remember that the RPG-7V will penetrate 320 millimeters of armour, as opposed to 400 millimeters for the 84 anti-tank weapon. Also, the RPG rocket can be seriously affected by crosswinds, which in turn affects accuracy. RPG-7s have appeared in Ulster in the hands of the Provisional IRA, but do not seem to have been used with any great success. Nevertheless, the weight of the launcher is half that of the 84mm medium anti-tank weapon. The length approximately 10 inches shorter, and the penetrative power of the rocket is still considerable. So this makes this weapon a particularly useful one for terrorist organizations. In summary, the machine guns firing the long 7.62mm rimmed round appear to be reliable and produce an effective rate of fire. However, there appear to be important failings in those weapons firing the 7.62 intermediate round. In the sequel to this film, we'll be looking in detail at shooting with Warsaw Pact small arms.
И гордые шагают автоматом, мне все военные науки по плечу, да я солдат. Кому же думать, как не молодым, о розовых восходах и закатах, о том, чтобы не скрыл их черный дым, а потому...
Having looked at the characteristics of some of the Warsaw Pact small arms that you're likely to meet, we're now going to show you 4 of the weapons actually firing. All I'm simply going to do is to show you the load-unload drill and any peculiarities in the weapon actually firing. And we'll start off firstly with the Makarov pistol, designated the PM, and here it is. The Makarov pistol, remember, very much like the 9mm Browning. You'll note in particular with the magazine that it'll take 8 rounds. Now note also with the magazine that it is open. And the loading drill exactly the same with the 9mm. Of course, you check your safety catch at safe and simply push in at the base and click home. When you come to firing, all you do, cock the weapon, same stance, and continue firing. And when you've completed firing, to remove the magazine, all you do is push back on this lug at the bottom and press the magazine out. Cock 3 times, look inside and squeeze the trigger. No need to put a magazine on, but you can if you wish to. Very simple Makarov pistol, load-unload drills, virtually the same as the 9mm Browning. Characteristics are very much the same as well. Here we have the AKM, the standard assault weapon of the Warsaw Pact forces. Firing, remember, the 7.62 intermediate round. That's the shorter one that you saw previously. Remember that this weapon is issued to Soviet infantry on a wide scale. Approximately 34 million have been produced. On this particular weapon, remember, you can fire in a single shot mode and also in an automatic mode. Takes a magazine of 30 rounds. Simply for loading this, like the SLR, all you do is fit it in the lugs here and press in. Make sure it's clicked home tight. Set your sights, pushing onto 300 on the battle setting, and now all you do is you set whether you want it on automatic there or single shot at the bottom. We'll start with single shot. Into the shoulder and cock, let the working parts forward. Into the aim. And if we want to fire on automatic, press up, which is the primary mode of this particular weapon. I want you in particular to notice how the weapon rapidly lifts and tails off, which when fired on automatic makes it slightly inaccurate. So note on the particular burst how the weapon rises. And if you wish to unload, exactly the same as the SLR, you press in, lift out. Then cock, working parts forward, press the trigger, safety catch up to safe. And that's all there is to the AKM. That deals with the AKM. And now to look at the RPK, the Soviet's light machine gun. Remember, it fires the same round that you saw with the AKM. That's the intermediate Soviet round, the shorter one of the two main Soviet rounds. Now really this weapon differentiates itself from the AKM by a longer barrel, a bipod and a club butt. Remember, it is the section light machine gun and it can take the 30 round magazine that you saw with the AKM. It's normally, however, fitted with this magazine, which is a 40 round magazine. You can sometimes also get a 75 round drum. The system for firing this is very much the same as for the AKM. To load the weapon, simply place the magazine on as we did with the AKM. And click back. Now remember, the hold on this is different to the AKM in that you pull back and in on the butt. To set your sights, as with the AKM, all we do is press in and push to our sight setting. This weapon, like the AKM, can fire on two modes, the single shot mode and the automatic mode. The single shot, like the AKM, press straight down on the safety catch. Then all it is a question of cocking the weapon and firing. Now, although you get little recoil on this particular weapon, one thing you do get is you get a jarring normally of the trigger finger as the vibrations come through the weapon. Just a slight inconvenience. To fire on the automatic mode, which is its primary mode, you simply push up to the next slot. And continue firing. When you've completed firing, although this weapon doesn't have a holding opening device, just simply take the magazine off like the AKM. Cock the weapon. E-springs, safety catch up. That's all there is to the RPK, just like in many ways the firing of the AKM. This is, although a reliable weapon, remember it's not that effective when considered the rate of fire of the particular weapon itself, and also the type of round. And bear in mind the type of roll that it does fire on. So much for the RPK. We've looked at the Warsaw Pact light machine gun, the RPK. We're now going to look at our final weapon, which is the heavy Gorinov machine gun, the SGM. And remember, this fires the larger of the two Soviet 7.62 rounds. You've seen it before in the previous part to this particular talk. Notice the weapon. The weapon is a very heavy one, and it's mounted on what we call an M1943 mount. It's fed from the right by a continuous link case. Now, that particular case you see there contains 250 rounds, and we've mixed it today with the ordinary ball ammunition and also the tracer ammunition. Now remember, with this particular weapon it fires a rimmed round. Simply to fire this, all you do is sit on the mount. When you come to firing, remember, you take a grip on the weapon like that. For alterations in elevation and also direction, you simply release levers at the side which allow you to go either up, down or sideways. To load, we lift back on the top catch. Take our continuous strict link belt, and we have this piece at the end that actually assists us to put the belt on. Bring it across, slot it in, press down and close the lid, and lift up. If it's on securely, you can then set your sights and cock the weapon. To set the sights, we lift up on the rear sight, press in at the side and set our sight setting. And then you have to juggle around to actually look through the weapon to tie up onto your target. And this is done best by leaning at the side. In this case, I'm already on the target. Simply a question now of cocking the weapon and continuing to fire. And the way we fire is we push up on a safety catch here and at the same time press the trigger plate there, like this. Once we've completed firing, all we do is lift up on the top cover. Remove the strip link belt, put it back into its container. Now remember, at this stage you've got a round to the rear. So close the top cover and fire that round off. And to check you're clear, cock the weapon, lift the top cover, check inside. Once you're clear, top cover down and working parts forward. And put your sights down, of course. That's all there is to the SGM. It's a good, dependable weapon producing a high rate of fire. But as you can see, it's heavy to operate and does require some difficulty in relaying onto another, perhaps SF task. That also concludes the 4 weapons that we're going to look at. Notice in particular that the sequence for firing is very much like those of your own weapons. And the effect of them we have studied in detail.
И гордые шагают автоматом, мне все военные науки по плечу. Да, я солдат, кому же думать, как не молодым.